disrespects and undermines the people of Zimbabwe. It is their attitude following their imposed amendment of the constitution, and therefore their attitude also in knowing that this bill is a highly contested bill. There are still challenges at the Constitutional Court. About 7 of them, Zimbabweans have challenged this bill. Under normal circumstances, a normal government should not begin alignment. Are they prophets that they are going to win at the end of the day, or they are aware that they are going to control the judicial system of Zimbabwe? Under normal circumstances, a president who sees that this bill is highly opposed by the people of Zimbabwe would have actually stopped. As Ziyambi voted by people, if he was voted by people, he would have halted the process of quickening the alignment of this bill, knowing that they are there is overwhelming majority of Zimbabweans who are opposed to this bill. Several cases have been filed at the Constitutional Court. Greetings and welcome to your lovely channel, the Hlonipani Global News. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. According to the state media, it says major reforms begin to align with the new Constitution Amendment Act. It says the process of aligning laws with the recently enacted Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Act number 3, which will see about 12 acts of parliament being amended over the next 2 years, has begun. Preparations to transfer the management of the voters' roll from Zimbabwe Electoral Commission (ZEC) to the Registrar General's office, one of the first administrative changes required under the new constitutional framework, are underway. The constitutional amendments introduced significant governance reforms, including transferring responsibility for voter registration and maintenance of the voters' roll to the Registrar General, establishing a delimitation commission, changing the procedure for filling a vacancy in the office of the president through election by parliament, extending presidential and parliamentary election cycles from 5 to 7 years, and expanding the Senate through the appointment of 10 additional presidential nominees. It also provides for the election of the president by a joint sitting of parliament. Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Minister Ziyambi told this publication that the government expects to complete the legislative alignment exercise by 2028. He said work was underway to identify all statutes that require amendment to give full effect to the constitutional changes. The Electoral Act is expected to undergo the most extensive amendments, as many of its current provisions are now inconsistent with the new framework. At present, the Act assigns responsibility for voter registration and maintenance of the voters' roll to ZEC. It will now have to be amended to transfer those functions to the Registrar General in line with the Constitution. So you see the consequences that we are suffering as a result of this act, and why people should stand up against this act. It continues to say the legislation will also have to be rewritten to reflect the new procedure for electing a person and filling a vacancy in the office of the president, which will now be done through election by parliament instead of a nationwide presidential election. Consequential amendments will also be required to cater for the extension of presidential and parliamentary electoral cycles from 5 to 7 years, revise election timetables and nomination periods, provide for the appointment of 10 additional presidential nominees to the Senate, and remove provisions assigning constituency delimitation functions to ZEC. The Constitution now provides for the establishment of a delimitation commission whose composition, functions, and operations would be set out in an Act of Parliament. Parliament's standing orders will also require revision to provide procedures for the joint sitting of Parliament that will elect a president or whenever a vacancy arises in the office of the president. Beyond electoral legislation, the government will also amend several other statutes to align them with the Constitution, including the Judiciary Service Act, the Supreme Court Act, the Constitutional Court Act, and the National Peace and Reconciliation Commission Act, the Defense Act, the Urban Councils Act, the Rural District Councils Act, the Traditional Leaders Act, and the Attorney General Office Act. We will amend the Electoral Act to give effect to the constitutional amendments that have already been enacted, he said. In addition, we are also looking at amending or coming up with legislation to give effect also to the Delimitation Commission, its composition, its functions, and related issues. So we will soon be working on those amendments as well as amendments to govern the relationship between ZEC and the Registrar General in terms of the voters' roll, its maintenance and upkeep related issues. We are giving ourselves, perhaps by 2028, we must have done all the amendments that we need to do. The Judiciary Service Act will have to recognize the newly created Office of the Judge President of the Supreme Court and define its administrative powers. The Supreme Court will also require amendments to reflect the restructuring of the Superior Court, with the Judge President assuming responsibility for the administration of the Supreme Court, while the Chief Justice becomes the head of the Constitutional Court. The Constitutional Court Act will in turn need to be amended to improve the court's expanded appellate jurisdiction and provide procedures for applications seeking leave to appeal on matters raising questions of general public importance. The National Peace and Reconciliation Commission Act is also expected to be repealed or substantially amended following removal of the constitutional provisions establishing the Commission. Further, the Defense Act will require amendments to align the statutory functions of the defense forces with the revised constitutional mandate, which now expressly include protecting people, its people, national security, national interest, territorial integrity, and upholding the Constitution. Changes to local government legislation are also in the pipeline. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's Office Act will have to be amended to reflect the new requirements that anyone appointed Attorney General must now be qualified for appointment as a judge of the Supreme Court rather than the High Court. Speaking in the Senate last week, Minister Ziyambi said the government had already commenced the administrative processes necessary to facilitate the transfer of responsibility for the voters' roll from the ZEC to the Registrar General's office. So it's a lot. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, which is responsible for the elections, have already begun the sensitization program with the Ministry of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, the Registrar General, and the Ministry of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage, and is also making sure that they have started the process of migrating the voters' roll from ZEC to Registrar General's office. He said the constitutional amendments, Minister Ziyambi said, had ushered in a broad legislative reform program, and Parliament will soon begin receiving bills designed to operationalize the new constitutional provisions. We need to do several consequential amendments, he said. What we are doing is that we are working on the modalities to see which laws we need to deal with. I can cite the Electoral Act, and we need to amend it. We also need to come up with legislation to give effect to the Delimitation Commission. So all this is now work in progress, and you will recall the Act was only assented to by His Excellency 2 weeks or so ago. You will soon find us bringing several bills to support the amendments that were made so that we give full effect to that. President Mnangagwa signed the Constitution of Zimbabwe Amendment Act number 3 into law on July 7. So in simple terms, you can see the complication. This bill on its own, that is Constitutional Amendment Bill number 3 of 2026, what Ziyambi is speaking about here is acknowledgement that it is illegal. It is actually contradicting several laws that have been enacted aligned with the Constitution of 2013. And also, because if this was a normal bill, a bill which dealt with one component, it would not have actually caused. Look at the budget. How many bills now? How many acts of parliament now will parliament have to deal with? And the people of Zimbabwe would have to pay, and they have to make sure that they align these laws with this ruthless constitutional change within a period of 2 years, which means parliament working overtime, people being paid to actually design new acts of parliament that will align with this. So it was a constitutional change that was not done through a referendum, and the consequences are now all over for everybody to see. So that is why the 31st of July is necessary to correct this anomaly and this damage whilst we are watching, doing nothing. Thank you very much for watching us. If you are watching us for the very first time, please do remember to press the red or black subscribe button so that next time when we beam live, you become the very first one to watch us. You can financially support this channel by pressing the join button and be part of our members who are the heartbeat of this channel. You can equally do so by pressing the thanks button and send us stars. Is signing off. Let me love and leave you. Let's meet on the other side.